look for a motion to approve as amended.
So moved. So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up.
Madam Chair, I just
Yep.
want, I'm sorry to interrupt, but are we telecasting now? I think we should. So we're rolling. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments regarding anything listed under the consent agenda? And if not, I would look for a motion to approve as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Then we will move to reports, and I will start as the chairperson. I just wanted to say how wonderful it is to meet in person again. We last met in person as a full commission in January of 2020, so it's been a year and a half, and it is really nice to be able to meet in person again. So good to see you all. And that's all I have, so we will move on to our treasurer, Ron.
And I don't have anything that's not going to be discussed further on in the agenda unless there's any questions.
Questions for Ron? Thank you. Then Executive Director, Tim.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commission members. I just want to kind of give you an update since your last meeting, which was in June. Of course, at that meeting, you revised your 2021 budget, including the elimination of 5 of the PEG programming positions. One of those that was, of course, vacant. It turns out there were 2 resignations in the meantime, and then finally, then there were 2 involuntary terminations. So the Commission's action was happened since the last meeting in that respect, and I can report that the remaining staff is adapting and trying to minimize the impact of that stuff on our summer coverage, and trying to make sure that we're covering the bases and that nothing's slipping through. Going from 13 to 8 employees. Obviously, organizational change, the subject of that is an ongoing discussion. And in the meantime, I think that you have an excellent crew remaining here who are capable of helping to get to where you want to go. In terms of other impact of the budget revisions that you made in June, there were changes that were implicated for bookkeeping, including the treatment of PEG fee revenue, as it's now paid under the new franchise by Comcast. So the related revenue and expenses need to be tracked in a different way, and Cindy and I have tried to implement that, started it, and so the appearance of your income and budget report has been altered. You'll notice kind of an extra set of expense line items in there reflecting the changes that you made. We'll also need to recode expenses going back to January 1st, and so that's something that's being worked on. With that, that's all I have to report at this time. I'm sure there's other elements here that come up during the agenda.
Okay. Any questions for Tim? Thank you, Tim. Then we will move on to operations update. Program logs and reports are in your packets. Questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. We have no report from our attorney, and I don't believe we have a representative from the cable company here this evening. So we'll move on to unfinished business. We have nothing. So new business, and we'll start with the 2022 budget recommendation of the Finance and Personnel Committee. Ron, would you like to start us off?
Yep. So the Finance and Personnel Committee met, and we basically did an extension of the existing 2021 budget. We did have to make some changes into the redistribution amount in order to try to cover some of the shortages that we're experiencing, especially out of the administrative budget. We have resource available, but it has to be, it's pegged and it's dedicated to the capital expense, is where we have the most flexibility to use that funding. So you are presented with the proposed budget as extrapolated from the 2021.
Okay. Jeff?
If you don't mind. Yeah, so the redistribution payment to the cities, and Ron, just to kind of buttress that point, was significantly adjusted in order to support the budget going forward. And if I might, the reason that budget going forward is being supported and funds are being moved about as efficiently as possible, whether for accounting purposes or to support the operations, is the renegotiation, obviously, and the new franchise agreement with Comcast. I don't think anyone here is unaware of the implications of that. The financial implications of that new contract have been significant for the Commission. And as you can tell from the unfortunate necessity to lose positions, that's hurt. It's hurt. And so there are some difficult questions for these commission members to make, or to ask, and some difficult decisions ahead of us. But I just want to remind all that are here that these are decisions made to keep this commission financially viable and continuing its mission to the extent it can with the budget that it enjoys. That's about all I have to say in terms of background on this. And if you want to get into individual things here, I'd be more than happy to yield the floor.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Additional comments or questions?
I just want to throw this out there, building on what Jeff mentioned. It's like, are we going to need? I think we're going to need some new policies set up for some of our distribution, and I thought it might be the legal and bylaws committee. If you can think of those things, like I was just writing a couple things down here, thinking, what do we need? How do we define what a city is a capital expense versus administrative expense? So I think we just need to start laying those out for our cities, so they're real clear on this is where you can spend the money, but you have to spend it differently than before. So,
Ron?
And along with that, that committee is going to have work to do because there are going to have to be policy. Tim actually mentioned this policy around the $250,000 construction. Mm-hmm. We're going to need
for Lake Elmo and Grant, I guess you're talking about.
Well, it's not dedicated, but those are the two areas that have the greatest need. But yeah, there'll have to be policy around that. With the changes, we're probably going to need some personnel policy changes and things like that. So there's going to be policies and things.
That was the first thing I wrote down.
Yep.
Yeah.
The grant, the expansion, build. So, yeah. How soon do you think we might need that build out policy set up?
Well, we have what, Tim, 2.5 years?
It was 5 years from the adoption of the franchise, which was in April.
Okay. So
When you talk to, maybe
Okay.
I'm getting maybe offline. Please pull me back. When you talked to Kara from Comcast, you were going to talk about something like this, how we help us, the attorney for what we usually deal with.
You mean
Carly?
Carly,
Warner?
yeah.
We just mentioned it briefly. She recognizes the sort of the policy for how to utilize that $250,000 is something that the commission has to come up with. And there's also the possibility that certain additional funding can come from whether it's the federal government or some of the broadband infrastructure.
Yeah.
There's some of that that's the wheels are starting to turn on that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that combination of things definitely needs to be evaluated going forward. But they're kind of waiting for response from either the communities or the commission, Comcast, that is.
Okay. It's the chicken and the egg. Do you want the communities to come forward? Do you want the cable commission? What is Carly looking for? Who goes first, I guess?
I don't think she's has a notion about that. Comcast doesn't have a notion about it. It's,
Okay.
I think it's a matter of protocol. They're expecting that the commission will have some way to communicate to the member communities about how to approach
Okay.
the
Yeah.
use of those funds.
We'll take a look at that. Jeff's nodding his head over there, I can see. Are
It
you nodding
needs to
your
get
head,
taken, it needs to be taken care of because that will be coming forward. We're not waiting for Comcast.
Okay, great.
Yeah, no, we're gonna get this done, so.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Sorry, taking us off.
Yep, nope, that's okay. And I'll just say I echo the comments of Randy and Ron in that we have a lot to review. This is a time of change, and so we have a lot of policies to review and, basically everything in addition to the budget. Where this is also big change for us, but with change comes opportunity. So hopeful for a leaner and meaner cable commission moving forward.
I don't want to mean.
Okay. Okay, I take that back.
Leaner.
Any additional questions or comments?
We're simply moving forward with the budget that we have.
Yep.
And again, trying to keep the mission as intact as possible with the funds we have to spend. This isn't hard in terms of looking at the finances that we have here. The cities have given. We've moved funds around in order to keep this moving forward. But the franchise renegotiation, I wouldn't characterize it as very helpful. It was very rough for us, and I won't say that we were able to, certainly, well, I'll leave it there. It was rough on us, and we need to move forward with the funds that we have here in order to accomplish as much of the mission as we can. Again, these are hard circumstances. The numbers are the numbers. You can move around as much as you can, and if my committee, Finance and Personnel, has not moved them around enough, please, someone else tell me how to move them around. I'd like to hear how to do that. I really would. Because we've spent days and days on this, moving them around in order to, again, maintain the mission, maintain as many of these important staff members as we can in order to have the personnel to fulfill that mission. So I'll leave it there and turn it back to the chair and the finance.
Well, I saw Karen first.
I know you've tried to move things around with what we have, but have you looked at how we can get outside funding? Various things that can be done. I'm just not comfortable. And the other thing that I'm concerned about is who's going to oversee the general, everything that's going on, and that's what our executive director did, or does. And so I'm concerned about not being with an executive director, at least for the time being, while we see if we can get things organized. We have some funds that can carry us over, but and the other thing is, does Tim have a contract? He does?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I?
Ron, yes.
A contract was brought to our attention by Tim when there were first discussions, and we're kind of going off, but maybe we just need to bundle all this together.
Okay, yeah, no, and I will say we're actually on the 2022 budget, and then the next item is staffing for the remainder of the year. Are you wanting to talk about next year or the remainder of this year pertaining to staffing?
Well, I guess both. If you're thinking of,
Okay, then continue.
having Tim gone before the next year, I mean, it's has to be this year too. When is his contract up?
So there is a contract that, now I was a little caught off guard by this when it was brought to my attention, because that contract says that we have to renew that annually. And the original contract was dated for February, sometime in February. I don't remember the exact date. I couldn't find my copy when I wanted to bring it tonight, just in case of this. But that contract states that we will renew that annually. Mm-hmm. That's never been brought to, in the years I've been with this commission, it's never been brought before us We've never talked about it when we've talked about raising the compensation of the executive director position. That being aside, that contract states that you have to give notice of non-renewal. There is a termination section within that contract that allows termination of the position with cause. The cause in this position is budgetary and financial resources of the commission. That's what this is about. It's about budgetary and financial reasons, and with the staffing levels that we have, can we truly justify an executive director position? Now, we have set up with staff so that we can talk with staff not only about this proposed change, but also the change that has occurred in just production staff. We want them to be able to offer us their ideas for what the commission looks like going forward for the member communities. So we have a meeting set up with staff on the 9th of August. We have a meeting set up with the member community cities because 2 years ago, before COVID hit, there was a meeting and I wound up attending because my city manager could not attend. And those city managers said that as soon as franchise is done, they want to meet to figure out what it is that they want the commission to look like. So we've set up a meeting with them for August 11th. That is an initial brainstorming session to start defining what the commission will look like. That is when we start long-term planning. I would like to see us within 9 months. I'd like to see it by the end of the year. A long-range plan for what we are going to do and accomplish to start transforming this commission and SCC for 1 year, and what 5 years is going to look like, and then a broader 10-year vision. We need to come up with a vision for what this commission looks like. Along with that is going to be lots of visionary thinking, enlightenment. I think we need to actively go after surrounding communities. Hugo, Stillwater, Les has talked in the past about this. You know, we need to try to actively engage them, maybe bring them into the commission. You know, somewhere down the road, I hope this commission looks different. I hope we're back to 12, 15 employees. I want to see this succeed because I want to see what we can do for our member communities. I don't want this money to just come into the cable commission, excess revenues just filter through to the member cities and do that. I want to see that we can provide real value to our subscribers and to our member communities. Now, they are going to have a big voice in what goes on. So, and you mentioned too, operations. We have a plan in place. We will engage certain staff to oversee daily operations and the production operations. It'll mean probably some changes to position descriptions for a couple people, but that's the engagement to see where we're going. The vision for this is unlimited. Truthfully, I'd love to see a sales and marketing member. We have to get there. We have to start figuring out what it's going to look like, what services we're going to provide, and then how we can market it. But let's try to figure out, can we sell studio space and generate some revenue? Can we sell production? I was even thinking the other day as I'm watching TV and the commercial comes on for the video, taking your home movies and things like that. Could we come up with, for people in our member communities, that service to transfer these memories? Can we make that a viable revenue model? That's what we have to come up with, is that type of creative thinking.
And who's going to be doing all of that?
Who?
Yeah.
Well, one, that would have to be a model that we think that, taking my example there, that would be that. For daily operations, you know what, we're going to have to lean on Cindy, we're going to have to lean on Mary Klein, we're going to have to lean on Jeffrey, it's going to have to be leaning on staff for some of this additional stuff. And right here, sitting at this table, we are all going to have to engage and become more and more active. I'm willing to make the investment in time. We're all going to have to. I mean, this is a lot of work. I mean, it's a ton of work. And I don't get paid. I don't get anything. And I will step up and do what I need to do. We'll have to define some of this with policy committee so that there is the ability to oversee. And then that's going to have to be voted on in trust. But there's a plan. We want to make a mission. I'm done. So,
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Well said. Thank you. Les?
Ron, what are we spending to reimburse our costs for cable?
I think it's like $26,000 a year.
That's coming out of our,
That comes out of our
general
budget.
funds. Have you guys kicked it around about getting rid of that?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was
I mean,
brought-
I hate to have
Yeah.
public forum and they come in, the first thing they say is, well, you guys get free cable.
Well,
Yep.
No such thing as free.
And that was actually brought forward a few years ago and voted down, but something I would definitely support.
Yeah, I think that we have to start with sacrifice.
Yep, for sure.
And we have to be a model for our representative cities. Then I think we look at what was colloquially called the pothole fund, the reimbursement back to the cities. I think maybe we need to put a crimp on that hose.
Ron?
may I respond?
Sure.
I brought that up. It's one of the things that I actually think about. However, and that will be a topic of discussion with the brainstorming session with the member communities. But my community does not rely on those funds. There are other communities that do. And if you take a look at adjusting that, then, are we really bringing what they want? Now, that's not going to be able to be answered until we have that communication with the cities. But I think you're going to get pushback.
I think pushback is good. And I think that looking at this share of revenues and how much money each city got, if we just cut back 1%, we would go a long ways.
Ron, do you want to go ahead and, if I may interrupt, and let Mr. Dom know what we've already cut out of those during this round here? We
Sure.
just cut these, so what did we just cut them from? And two. I can't remember if it was 3% or 4% we cut out of this. What did we end up doing?
I want to say it was close to 4%.
Close to 4%. So let's talk about the value proposition for a second. So we've already given 4% back to the commission. My city and maybe some other smaller cities may not be happy about that. That's the deal we made. That's the deal we'll expect to be honored. Is there some flexibility there on a short-term basis in order to keep things moving forward, keep the mission moving forward? Absolutely. Long-term? Probably not. I heard a couple of people talk about, I'm not mentioning names because I can't remember who said it, about recruiting other cities and then providing...
You can take Prevagen.
Yeah, I'm sorry? Could you say that again?
You can take Prevagen, so you're mind sharper.
Oh, yeah, I could. Yeah, that's a good idea. So we could recruit some additional cities, and then the next thing was, were we providing enough value? I mean, we need to provide more value. Ron, you were saying you want to provide more value to these cities. Unfortunately, when we were fully staffed, we had all of our cities here, we weren't providing enough value at that point. And I'll give you the facts. They're called Maplewood, North St. Paul, and Vadnais. They're gone. We bled those cities. They left for a reason because we weren't apparently providing enough value. They won't be the last to leave. I can guarantee you that. If this organization does not streamline and start providing real value for the amount of money that goes into it and starts doing more streamlined business. When I look at the numbers here, I'm looking at, for example, right now, we're looking at a supervision cost from our executive director of each of our employees of just over $14,000 each. So if I were to look at each employee, just divide up that ED salary for each employee, it's $14,000 plus each for supervision. 3 years ago, we started pushing for revenue models. We also talked about that here a moment ago. Revenue models have been proposed for years. It's never happened. Never happened. Now we're going to push for those revenue models to, for example, start transferring tape to disc, start transferring tape to digital, doing these other things. Unfortunately, I think that that is going to require a rethink of both management, technology, and perhaps even further staff rethinks. And that's, by staff rethinks, I'm talking about just retraining, perhaps additional capital to bring in a machine or the technology that can do these types of things, right? So retraining of staff, getting this in. You know, I tend to look when organizations change at the top, it's painful. It's always painful. Whether it's a mayor, an executive director, no matter who it is, it's painful. But I tend to always, I don't know why, I go back to early experience. I look at an Army model. I wonder how many squads of soldiers, 6 or 7 soldiers, are being bossed around by a general. It doesn't happen too often. Normally you've got a sergeant, maybe a first lieutenant bossing around 6, 7 guys, right? In this case, Tim's a general, frankly, in the hierarchy of employees, and I'm not sure that at this point we need a general in order to streamline the organization and move forward. And it's unfortunate, and it's not a happy task whatsoever, but I'm also not sure that the cities, I speak for my own, of course, will agree to continue subsidizing activities overall that have not in the past proved to be enough to keep our member cities here. These member cities left for a reason. And unfortunately, until we find a way to make sure that I can point to each and every one of them and say we're providing that value, there's going to be changes.
I hear a threat there.
No threat. I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that the cities have certain expectations. If those
Right.
expectations are not met, those cities have to make other decisions.
Right. But who's to say that having an executive director for a certain time limit until we can get things straightened out is going to be so terrible? I mean, you're putting a lot of extra work on these people, the staff. They're going to change. They're going to have to do this that they've always done, and then they're going to have to do that. And it's broken up into pieces. You know, this one is part of the executive director, this is another part, and another part. Who's going to pull it all together? That's why I think we need somebody in charge of the whole thing as we transform.
Okay? I'm sure. Go ahead, Ron. I'm done.
So, can you really say that given our current operations, and you talk about work, these people may have to, they're going to be taking on more work and everything else. To be honest, I would rather hire back 2 of the people that we let go that are doing work than have an executive director that I do not think, with the budget and the amount of work there is, like Jeff says, justifies that position. Now, do we need somebody for transformation? Yes. And there are ways that that can be handled short term as this vision from the communities is defined. That's an easy part. Too often, all the cuts are made down here, and there's nobody but this left. And guess what? I've been in those businesses, and all of them are out of business right now because up here milked it all away. And Jeff wasn't making a threat. Like he says, North St. Paul, Vadnais, and Maplewood all left. My community wants, everybody can answer this question for themselves, but are we giving your community what they want? My community wants to see something different. We've gone through the franchise. We got the best deal we could. You know, I think we have some leverage there to actually maybe maneuver in some people because we got a decent franchise. But, you know, what are you going to do with that? And like I said, the people I'm asking to step up are you and me and Lori and Randy, all of us. We need to step up. We need to become more active in the operations. You can empower the executive board, or we can form another committee right here, or operations or policy takes it on, and they can handle some of those decisions that are being made by an executive director position right now. I spent a lot of time working this budget. You know, Tim spent a lot of time working the budget, but we're now to a point, you know, do we really have the need for that? If you honestly look at it and say we do, that's what we're all here for. We're here to cast a vote and how it goes. But we need to have change. And maybe, you know, 5 years down the road, we got 15 employees. Maybe we're looking at an executive director again. But for 7 people,
You said something about getting a couple more people because of the franchise, the way it was written.
I said I would rather have 2 workers doing production.
Yeah, but how did we get those 2 workers? I thought you said that there's money in the franchise for that.
What I was talking about is you're talking about maintaining the executive director. For that salary, I would rather keep 2 production staff that can provide direct service to the member communities. Now, that's not my call. That's none of our call. And that's why the brainstorming session, so that member communities can start giving their input. They can start guiding towards. How long have you been on the commission?
Since the very beginning.
Very beginning. When was the last time you saw a long-term plan, a goal?
Not for this commission.
Right. Do businesses succeed without one?
Pardon?
Do businesses succeed without a long-term mission and goal?
No, I believe in goals and missions and.
And that's what we need. And we haven't done it, and it's time that's what's starting to be looked at.
I think what we were doing was just following the law and, you know, how it was set up and what commissions, what municipalities could do and that kind of thing. I think that's pretty much the way it was being run.
Yeah, the joint powers, I actually have the joint powers and the bylaws here. They don't really speak to much. They don't talk about value. They don't talk about mission. Tim's contract actually has some very interesting aspects to it in responsibilities and things like that. But we're not going to get into that nitty gritty. This is financial. It's not easy.
No,
Tim's worked
understand.
really hard for the commission for many, many years. This was not an easy decision for any of us on the Finance and Personnel Committee. But Finance and Personnel Committee reviewed this. We decided it was the best course of action. It was brought before the Executive Director Board. It passed the Executive Director Board. Now it has to come to the full commission. We have to make a decision on this. And then we have to start planning for what that future looks like.
Oh, I understand that. But I think I read that he would be gone August 1st.
August 6th is what we've told him would be our last day. And we may as well throw some other facts out there. We have to pay him 50 days of sick time payout. That's 50 days, that's what?
About 3 months.
Yeah, about 12 weeks that we have to pay out. We have to pay out. So basically, everything we have in the 2021 budget, buys him out of his contract. Or, sorry, doesn't buy him out of his contract. I used the wrong term. It covers our expenses with the ending of the position. Now, those expenses are going to exist, so if we keep the executive director position, then we need to plan, because your 2022 budget better go up by about $32,000, a little more, because we're going to have to cover those expenses at some point.
So if you kept him for the end of his contract, which it would be in December, right?
Well,
And then you'd have to pay him the sick leave on top of that.
yep. And there is no, technically the contract auto renews, although again, like I said, I have some question about that because of the fact that we've never voted on it.
Right.
But it's February is when the original contract dating back to 1992, I think it is.
I think 95.
95?
Yeah.
That's when the original contract was. Again, in all my years with the commission, I never even knew this existed, and I never.
Well, the fact that we approved his salary, ipso facto or whatever, says, well, we've renewed his contract.
Well, we approved everybody's salary increases. So, I mean, again, if you don't know that a contract exists, that doesn't make it any less binding. But we have had this reviewed by an employment attorney. The contract, that clause is about non-renewal. And if we chose not to renew his contract, we would have to notify him. I believe it's 90 days. There was discrepancy between 90 or 120, but I believe the contract attorney or the employment attorney said 90 days. So we would have to notify him if it's February 15th, let's just throw a number out there, January, December. By November, we would have to notify him we're not going to renew the contract. But then you still have to pay through that time, blah, 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 unless you terminate for cause. Again, cause in this case is not, it's about budgets.
So if you're terminating for cause, then he doesn't get the sick pay?
No, that has to be paid out no matter what.
Okay.
In our policy, Tim actually has, I can't remember off the top of my head, so I apologize. It's about twice that much sick time. But our policy limits to a 50-day payout.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually something that, in my opinion, policy is going to need to take a look at. Is that much accrual of sick time? And same with having 200 hours of vacation. I want these people taking their vacation, rejuvenating, becoming happier, healthier employees for the commission.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Right.
So very few companies will let you carry over that kind of vacation. And once this came to my light, I'm a little concerned about some of the heavy vacation.
Well, a lot of that stuff is from in the past, before 2000, and things have changed in a lot of companies. But
that's a huge liability for the commission, is all that unused vacation, because that is a liability on your line items.
Well,
And
that's going to happen regardless of when he's gone.
that's why I say we're going to have to revisit how much time you can carry over
Oh,
in
but
vacation.
that's for a new policy.
Right, correct.
Not for what's going on now.
Right now we're going to have
Regardless
those.
if he goes August 6th or February, he's still under the old, 50 days or whatever.
The
for
contract
sick
is
leave.
the contract's not valid. That's only about renewal. I mean, there is no real contract because cause can be anything. Cause can be lack of performance. Cause can be budget. Cause can be disability. I mean, we're not. If we all vote to disband the commission, we're not going to pay out his contract because the commission's being disbanded. Again, this is not an easy decision, not by any stretch.
I guess what I'm concerned about is the beginning of the change and somebody overseeing it, who has worked on it a long time and can just for a while, not forever.
Jeff?
Yeah, those changes are not going to be implemented from a top-down director position, no matter,
No, I didn't say that.
well, you just said that you wanted.
No, I said he would oversee what was going on and bring things together and,
Well, I'm not sure that we'll need an overseer or anyone to bring things together because, as Ron has explained, I think quite well, we're going to have to re-envision this. The people that work here now, the people that we have unfortunately just have left now, our 7 folks, know what they're doing. I don't think they need, again, a general at $14,000. I just did the math, $285 per person to be supervised to do their daily jobs.
well, doesn't he do more than that?
But let me finish, please. To do their daily jobs at that cost, I don't think is necessary. The people we have here, whether it be Cindy or the executive committee or some of the more senior employees, know exactly what they're doing. And I think that those daily activities can be guided very properly through the application of their experience. We're talking about moving forward, and we're also we're talking about 2 things. We're talking about moving forward, setting goals, and then implementing those goals throughout the organization. In the past, we've tried to set goals, whether it was, I can remember multiple meetings trying to put together revenue models over the last few years. None of it ever came together. That was disappointing, but those are the facts. We tried to make changes to keep Maplewood. We tried to make changes for North St. Paul and for Vadnais. None of that ever happened. So in terms of having someone to oversee and implement those changes, I think it's probably best to look at the numbers, see where we're sitting, and then perhaps strike out in a bold way. I don't think that we need this position anymore. That's an opinion. But what is not an opinion is that we can't afford this position anymore.
You brought something up about setting goals or whatever for the
Ron
cities
did.
that
Yep.
are gone.
Ron did.
And you said they never came about.
Right.
Why didn't they come about?
There was a lack of execution on some of that stuff, but I'm not going to go into it. What I'm going to say right here and right now is that this is a position that, in my opinion, looking at the numbers from only my city's perspective and from my position on the Finance and Personnel Committee, we can no longer afford. I've given the number of $14,285 per employee. It can't be any clearer. That is something that we cannot afford moving forward in terms of sort of that top-down management. I've never seen a large company or any company with 7 employees and a director paid that kind of price. I've never seen it here.
That $14,000 is going to be the total of the executive director's salary, so you're going to be paying it anyway.
That's sort of the point, that we probably shouldn't be paying that anymore. It's an expense that we can't afford. That
But this budget calls for that.
calls for, yeah,
Paying those
and
people.
that would take me back to Ron's excellent point, in which Ron said, you know what, I'd rather, if I had a choice or there was a choice to be made here, he would rather see those dollars be put toward bringing on 2 new technical people, perhaps the technical people he discussed before, taking memories from folks, whether it be Super 8 film or something else, and putting it on digital. Perhaps that's a revenue stream we could use with those with that money, or bring in another camera operator that could do more sports stuff, and maybe even charge some of these folks for sports. You'll notice in a part of the report, I think I passed it up here, where some of the hockey folks are offering to or looking for quotes to film everything. Well, that's someone we could bring on with that money and perhaps build revenue. So, and we would not need sort of that top-down heavy management style to get it done. It's just not necessary anymore,
Okay,
Karen.
I'm not just talking about overseeing employees.
Oh.
There are other things that an executive director does, and we would not have that done.
Okay, can you name some of those things for me?
Well, no, I can't. That's the
Oh.
problem for me.
Okay.
But I'm sure that the executive director is with other people, gets together with other executive directors. They worry about laws and what the commission can do, and I don't know, stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes, Bob.
Again, I'm hearing mixed comments about what's occurring here. One, obviously, the objective to look at our mission and
be true to our mission and what will the commission look like may not be the same things. Looking at it, what the commission will look like in the future, what our mission is now may not be the same. And so that's where I'm having just a little sideways with some of these, how it's progressing ahead. And perhaps to Karen's point, it's not really about the executive director position and carrying forward. It's about who can accomplish the move ahead and what the commission will look like. I know we all want to step up and raise our hands and sit down and have all these options of what can be done. Simple, I wouldn't say simple, but comments of revenue streams that have come up over the years. Wonderful, and that's what we need to do to probably progress ahead. I can certainly understand that. That being said, that may be different than our current mission. And with that in mind, a bit of my frustration is that the 2022 budget is based on our current mission. So we're backfilling with what we really don't know what we want to do next year or 2 years from now or 5 years from now to even begin that basis. So on the one hand, a quick line item is goodbye executive director takes dollars off the budget. However, it won't be filled in for free by all of us. And if that is the expectation, I'm not going to agree with that. I believe a line item could come in and there's some consultant type interim staff person that would quite honestly not be less expensive. It may be even more costly to amplify where we're going with this to help pull it all together. The revenue streams, who's going to go out and market? If we're going to do hockey tapes, doesn't matter what, refill videos, somebody's got to go market this and advertise it, and I don't know who among the existing staff exists. Somewhere we'll have to fill that. Now maybe that's coming from an executive director position, however, I think the commission first has to get to who do they want to be. And then based on that, fill in the financials.
Ron?
If I can just speak briefly to that. Part of the actual 2021 budget has a small amount in there for a consultant evaluation of the commission's operations. Offer us, again, so that we can take to the member communities as planning, but from the Finance and Personnel Committee when we did it. And, unfortunately, because as you're planning this out and this is a sensitive topic, we couldn't talk completely about this until things were progressed through the proper channels. But we have a small amount in there to bring somebody in to take a look at our operation, evaluate us. We're going to have to find that person, but we need to think fresh, and that's the whole thing. And I'm not expecting all of us to do all the work, but we are going to have to step up and maybe have a committee that oversees the operations. Like I said, there's options to us, but can you really justify that kind of money? You want to talk about, I'm going to just say this. We may as well throw it all out there. Okay, White Bear Lake. $163,000 was paid back in redistribution. How much is White Bear Lake willing to kick into the executive director position?
I can't speak for White Bear Lake in that department.
I know, but these are the questions.
Council decision.
These are the questions that the member communities are going to need to talk about,
right,
as they envision what we look like. Right now, we have to keep the lights on. That's
for another year.
Well, not for another year. If we don't show them that we can make some change that brings real value to them, I guarantee you North St. Paul's not the last one. I mean, we are going to lose other communities. I mean, we have to provide value. And what's that value? And if you can tell me what the value that we bring as we keep downsizing. We did this, our last cut was when? 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Big one, yeah.
The bottom line is we got to change the model.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that model doesn't work, not for this group.
So Albert Einstein said, we cannot solve the problems that we created with the same thinking that created them. I didn't get that exactly
That's the
right.
definition of insanity.
Exactly.
When
And
you
so,
expect same input,
Different result.
and we
different
need to
results,
change
doesn't
that.
happen.
I think all of us have a passion for this. I don't come sit here. You brought up the reimbursement. Now, we can take a look at that. You know what? I kick back on that because I do not think that you should have to fork out for cable. But I learn a lot by being a cable member. But if I can't afford cable, how do I efficiently do my job? But now that can be revisited. If we want to talk about that as a commission, we can. But we got to come up with different things. We can't look at just this and this and this. We have to look at the whole picture and come up with something new and fresh. And we all have to either be passionate about it or I'm not interested in spinning my wheels in Minnesota snow anymore. I want to see change.
Jeff?
Yeah, there needs to be change. And again, I was asked whether or not I was threatening. No, I'm not threatening anyone. Just like Ron wasn't threatening anyone when he said some communities want to see change. I don't need to threaten anyone. Again, I just need to say Maplewood, NSP, Vadnais Heights. There's no threat. It's just simply there. This commission is going to change, and it's going to change along the lines that we've discussed, or I fear that could occur again, and then we're going to have even harder decisions to make. Ron, I do sit here to represent my city. And for some of these larger cities, the amount that comes out of this redistribution is pennies to you. It might pay for one of your trucks or a cop car or two. We don't have any of that. We have 4,000 people, 72 miles of road, one part-time employee. It means something to me. And frankly, any organization that can't keep itself afloat, I don't know if it needs to continue operating in its same way if it can't keep itself afloat without going back after the people that actually established it and sending them bills. We're not going to be paying bills for something that's been established years ago. Again, it needs to stay afloat on its own. We need to start making some changes, or I'm afraid that more changes will come anyway.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Make a motion, we adopt the city's 2022 budget recommendations as attached in agenda packet number 24.
Yeah. Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I still am concerned
You
for
can vote
the
no.
1 year. What?
You can vote no.
Yeah, I know, but I'm concerned for the 1 year of not yet having in place job descriptions for all the people who are going to be taking over what an executive director does. I'd like him to help get that established, and that's why I'm going to vote no.
Now, we need to be mindful that this is a weighted vote.
Yep.
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes.
I'm assuming part of this motion is to adopt then the recommendation around the elimination of the executive director. Is that, as I understand, or is this just the budget?
This is the budget, which includes the elimination of that position for 2022.
Okay. So I just wanted to add a couple of comments, and I appreciate everyone's perspective and passion around this, and being relatively new to the topic is really helpful to hear the different perspectives. And so one of the things that I think I'm struggling with the most right now is the lack of a real solid plan for what happens next. I understand the need to cut money out of the budget, and I now understand the rationale for the timing of when, the August 6th. That's helpful to understand that, there's money the remainder of the year for the payout. But again, I kind of echo some of what Karen is saying with who's leading this change. And I guess from where I'm sitting, I'm hearing conflicting things. One is we just need to have people that can do the jobs, do the work, and they can operationally manage it. But on the other hand, we want to transform, we want a vision, we want to know what we're going to be or what we need to be to add value. And quite honestly, my professional experience says you can't do transformation without having someone who can do the legwork. And I don't see, I myself am not going to be able to step up and take on much work with that, and I think it's a big risk. I don't know if the executive director position is the right position, but I think there needs to be a position that's primary responsibility is shepherding us through this transformational change to make sure it happens and is accountable to that, so it doesn't fall on the shoulders of the folks around this table that may or may not be able to step up for that. But I guess I really would like to see more of a plan for what happens after August 6th. It concerns me.
Okay, so I'm not going to name names on who we are thinking of because until this action is taking place, but there's a plan to have somebody step up to be operational manager within the organization. There is a plan for production manager so that we can split a lot of those executive director duties across those two. Those two positions can then cross-approve each other. Again, it's going to need policies. You can't, it's kind of hard to have the conversations to tell you exactly what's going to happen until you have the action in place. So there has to be a little faith that the Personnel and Finance Committee has done their due diligence and we have a concept and a model in. But I'm not going to tell you that we're going to promote Tim over here to be operations. Sorry, Tim's the wrong choice because that could get confusing. Billy Bob here to operations manager until we have this resolved, because you don't want to create any types of issues within the organization until this commission takes action.
I would just set aside, though, the operational side, because I think you've got that figured out, where you can split the duties, the oversight. What I'm most concerned about is the transformation and how is that going to happen and who is going to lead that. And quite honestly, you need someone with experience on that. And I think that's where the consultant, the potential consultant comes in. That's what I want to see before we say, you know what, we don't need an executive director. We don't need that leadership role in the organization. I'd like to see a plan that says, you know what, this is how we're going to go about transformational change, vision, planning, and here's the timeline. And I mean, that would make me really comfortable. I feel confident that you've got the operational side figured out. I do, based on what you've told me. But it's the other side of this that I'm struggling with.
And the only thing else, sorry, may I?
Yep, please.
The only thing I'll say to that is, like I said, we put money aside for that consultant evaluation. Out of that, we'll determine, do we keep this person to help lead this transformation? We start those brainstorming sessions with the member communities. That's the key. It really boils down to these member cities telling us what they want. You know, we can say that we're going to give anything. And again, I've been in organizations where you do that. And again, they put all their eggs in this basket because, oh, the customer wants this, but they never ask the customer. And our customer is the member community. And that's why these brainstorming sessions, that's why we start pulling out of them. And I agree with you. That consultant is going to be the right person. But you have the person that's led all along. How do you meld the two? How do we keep an existing executive director that we know we want to make the change to start the transformational changes, and still you have to sever ties at some point. This is my opinion speaking, but we have to take a chance, because not taking chances has caused us to dwindle. That's my perspective after my years on the commission.
Madam Chair,
Jeff.
if I may. The operational side is down, and we can handle that. That is planned. This organization has been around for a long time. Most of the people here have been here for quite some time. We have very loyal folks here. Operationally, pretty sure it's just going to keep chugging right along. In terms of, and I hear what you're saying about having a strategic vision and being able to execute that strategic vision with the right people in place. that make sense. You can't always do that in your organization until changes are made with the generals, because you need new generals sometimes. We find ourselves in a complex situation, not only budgetarily. We have an employment contract none of us knew about for the last 15 years that just popped up. So there's all kinds of different complications there that preclude us from doing exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. Preclude us from having those plans set in concrete. And Ron's right. You need to talk to some of these member cities and figure out what exactly they want before that plan comes together. So operationally, we've got that put together. It just keeps chugging along. We quickly move to the visioning part of it with the member cities who are truly in control, and then we go ahead and implement. Now that chugging along, as long as that keeps going, we have an executive committee that keeps its eye on it and keeps a hand in those operations, it's going to be fine. And then we move forward to those two other pieces of the pie. Serving your cities properly while doing those exact things that you're talking about. It's difficult to do it when you're in a static position. You've sometimes got to step off that step first before you can take that next step.
I definitely get that. I wonder, though, if there's a role for the executive director to play in that transition, would be my question. And I think I sense an undertone of something else going on here, and so I won't belabor the point, but I do wonder, with the expertise of the executive director, if there is value in that transition of, and maybe it's shifting the focus of that role to, you know what, we need to transform, we need a vision. We're going to change things from an operational standpoint. That's not your responsibility. We need you to do this. So just another way of looking at it. But again, I understand what everyone's saying. I think we just have different perspectives.
You talked about a consultant. When would that consultant be hired? Right away? When Tim is gone?
It would probably, as soon as we make this decision, we would reach out to a consultant so that we can get that evaluation. We wouldn't have an evaluation by the first brainstorming session with member communities, but I see this being a monthly thing for about 6 times as the member communities. This first one would be, hey, here's the clean slate. You got a fresh wall. How do you want to paint it? And come with new ideas. The first step, get them thinking. I work on projects. You have to consider all the stakeholders. You have to pull in all the risks, you have to look at everything. And then you start taking the pieces that are important. Covey. You guys familiar with 7 Disciplines of Execution and Franklin Covey? And anyway, what that does is it sets in an organization, what we need to do is set three mission goals for the next year. And then as we work down, and each member community, they need to start putting how they can support that and what these goals mean. And we need to start building that model and build that long term. So when I want to get a consultant in as soon as possible to look at our operations, take a look at what they've done, what's happening elsewhere in different parts of the country, different parts of the city, but what types of things are they doing to create a solution? And then listen to what these brainstorming sessions start to pull out of our member communities, and then start to outline, and they're going to put the paint by numbers lines on the canvas for us, and then we're going to have to start filling in the color. And again, we may wind up hiring an executive director somewhere down the road. This consultant may work for a year, or we may do an initial evaluation. Until we start getting that voice and we get that fresh look, I just think it's real challenging. We've all got our thoughts and inputs on this. Tim is my friend. I've worked with him for many, many years. I don't want to cut his position. But from a budgetary and business standpoint, we don't have a choice.
Well, couldn't he do what the consultant would do? He knows the area. He knows other commissions. He knows through our attorneys what's going on in the country elsewhere. So he's familiar with the cities and whatnot. Are you saying that familiarity is just not good?
Given our current place of where we've stepped down and stepped down and we've stepped down, I think we need something fresh and new. I really do.
Well, I'm not saying we say, yep, we're going to keep Tim for 2 years, 5 years, or whatever. I'm just saying keep him until we get through this reorganization and see if we want to get rid of an executive director, or if we need a different executive director, or whether he stays.
Well, let me ask you this. If I hired you to come in and make an evaluation, do you want that fresh slate? Or do you want to have to work with existing leadership when you're trying to transform all that?
Well, I think he needs some history, too.
I don't know that we do anymore, to be honest. Because we need something different. What we've done hasn't solved our problems. And we've tried for years.
Well, maybe we just haven't done what needs to be done, but now we know it has to be done.
Well, we have a motion on the floor.
Yep. So we
We do.
And I think we should vote on it.
Yep.
And then we can get down to more specifics of getting our member cities here and involved.
Okay, so this motion is pertaining to the 2022 budget. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
So let's do a roll call vote then.
Sure. Randy LaFoy,
Aye.
Bob Nufford,
Aye.
Jeff Cooper,
Aye.
Katrina Beckstrom,
Aye.
Karen Gotchberg,
No.
Lori Polkerbeck,
Aye.
Les Dow,
No.
Ron Den,
Aye.
Vicki Keating.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
What did you say? I abstained. I don't know enough about that.
So this is weighted voting. So you have, so with the abstention, there's 100 votes seated around the table. And you need 2/3 to pass. But with Karen and Les voting against, that represents 37 of 100.
Motion fails.
I don't think that's 2/3, so the motion
Nope.
failed.
It's
Okay. So then our situation is we need a budget per our joint powers agreement to present to our member cities by August 1st. So we need to figure this out.
This has been great, Ron. You have really stepped up here, and I appreciate that. And we're going to fix it.
Bob?
Madam Chair, with the tight timeline, I wonder if there's a way to have an interim extension of that joint powers agreement for all the cities. I don't know if that means 30 days, because I just have difficulty believing this can be rehashed in 2 days.
Now,
At
can
least
I make
extend,
a-
modify the joint powers slightly.
I actually copied the language of the joint powers just so you
Is
can
that
have those.
possible, temporary?
It says a proposed budget for the ensuing calendar year, including a clear accounting of anticipated carryover and projected reserves, shall be formulated by the commission and submitted to members municipalities on or before August 1st. Such budget shall be deemed approved by a member unless prior to October 15, preceding the effective date of the proposed budget, the member gives notice in writing that to the commission that it is withdrawing from the commission. So there is a requirement for joint powers. I don't know whether you could get the agreement of the member cities to sort of agree to set this aside for a period.
Ron?
Well, this isn't going to be popular, but I'm going to throw it out there. And I don't know, I don't want to be the pouty little child but your way to make this work right now is somebody makes a motion that we pass the budget as presented with the executive director position reinstated. And then you take a look at that. You may revise that budget later on going forward. So that is a solution to your immediate need. I'm not interested. I've got too much other stuff going on in my life. I can't do all this work if we're not going to start moving towards a different direction. So I think we're going to actually need to find a new treasurer, because if we're not moving forward, I'm sorry, but on the 30th, I will work through this. I will attend the first meeting with the member communities if you so want me, but there's too much effort. I've had too much. I get an ulcer. Like I said, I don't want to let Tim go, but so somebody else is going to have to step in and figure out next year and this, but we have a solution. We can do that temporarily. You can pass it the way it is. It'll affect the redistribution of funds, because what you'll do is you'll just suck it right out of that, and that'll reduce the redistribution amount that you're going to send over to the cities, but you have a solution to get you through and still be in compliance.
And then we could change it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'll vote for an amendment, and then the amended budget will go through just like we had to for 2021 and everything else. So,
No, I really appreciate all the work that you guys have done, and you especially. But I just couldn't agree with.
So I'm going to ask you a point blank question. Where are you going to cut the budget?
Yeah.
Where am I going to?
I'm going to pose this to you and Les. Where are you going to cut?
Well, we're going to figure out how to increase our budget. That's what the consultant
No, what do you mean
would
by
be
increase
doing.
the budget? What do you mean by increase?
When you're talking about reinventing the commission and you want a consultant, the consultant should be able to tell us, well, you can do this to earn money, you can do that to earn money, and, that's where the money would come from.
So, Les, is that what you're saying too?
I'm sorry.
And Les, I'm asking that to Les. Is that what you're saying too? Or are you going to cut the budget? Or are you going to increase the funds? Those are our two choices. Or withdraw it from our budget reserves.
Well, we've got a reserve fund.
So you're going to go tell our cities we're going to suck out money from our budget reserves because this commission can't make the hard choices.
Just for a year, maybe.
It's not that we can't make the tough choices. It's that we've got to change our operating model, and we don't know the direction we're going right now.
Well, I would say our cities have been waiting for franchise renewal, and now we are done, and they are craving change. This is our opportunity. If we do not take advantage of this opportunity, we're done. We're done. And I have to say, when it was talked about, who's going to put in the time and effort, I have to thank Ron, our treasurer. He's put in so much time and effort, and the whole executive committee has offered to run the brainstorming session with the cities, to set it up, to run it, put all sorts of time and effort in to get this thing turned around. And if we don't have the buy-in to do that, we're wasting our time. So, frustrating.
Yeah, if I may, I just thought, with Maplewood, North St. Paul and Madness leaving, I thought it would be pretty obvious that we needed to change things. I guess it isn't. We'll have to find the money somewhere. But I'll tell you what. Yeah.
I don't think of business long term.
No? Okay. All right. Well, as Lori said, the iron is hot, and changing budgets when they should be changed is key. I'm sorry that this didn't go quite the way it should have. Anyway, I'm done there. We need, Ron recommended a motion, I think. Madam Chair, I'll leave it to you from there.
I recommended a solution.
Solution, thank you, Ron.
I'm not.
You're correct.
I'm
Thank
not
you.
making a motion.
Absolutely,
Somebody
Ron,
else
no.
will have to make it. But
I shouldn't have used that word. You're right. That is a solution for now. It is a solution that is going to come with heavy repercussions.
What kind of repercussions?
We are going to be rethinking the entire model. Karen?
No, but what are the repercussions for moving on this suggestion?
We have to change the entire budget and start pulling money probably out of the distribution to the cities. For my city, that's a real repercussion, and they're going to take a very long and hard look at that.
You have to you can't take it out of the excess funds that we have.
You mean the
here?
reserves?
Yeah.
You know, who owns those reserves, Karen?
Oh, the cities don't get it.
Oh, the cities don't? Okay, so then we don't own those reserves?
The commission does.
Okay. All right. So, back to you.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
unless I don't understand.
we don't have a motion on the floor at this point.
I'm not going to make it.
No, I'm not.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. What is the motion?
What Ron had said.
You want me to repeat it just to make it easy
Please.
on you? That the proposed budget be adopted with including the executive director's salary back into the budget, and those funds coming out of the proposed redistribution amount and going to cover the administrative salary.
Explain to me, because maybe I am misunderstanding. You're saying the redistribution amounts, the amounts that the cities get at the end of the year.
Right, so when we do a budget,
Yeah, but I mean, we talk about having funds that are just there that could be used in general funds.
yep,
you know?
and we would have to vote to use that general fund dollars. And if we start burning up commission assets,
No, I understand that.
then, you know,
But what I'm saying is you don't have to make the cities feel that they're going to get less. And just
I'm-
for a while, you're just going to take funds from the general whatever.
no, it's going to come out of the redistribution. So proposed, I'm sorry, but let's say that our redistribution for next year is proposed to be $600,000. And now you need to cover, let's just say $100,000 for executive director's salary. Okay? I'm just throwing round numbers out there just for visualization. Okay? So now your adopted new budget as presented by Les is going to be that redistribution amount is now $500,000. So that's what will be proposed, and you now have money to cover the executive director's salary for 2022.
Okay, but what I don't understand is if we have other money, why can't we take it from the other money instead of the city?
Well, actually, by the bylaws, you have to redistribute everything that is not spent on operations. So if you take it from the asset fund over here, you've still got to pay out the $600,000. So you can do that, but then you're going to reduce this, and my member community is going to ask why you're spending assets when you have operational money. Our joint powers say that you take your proposed budget and then any amount collected in excess of that has to be redistributed. So you can pull, you could pull 500,000, and that may come up when we do this revisualize or reinvention of what our services are. We may have to spend $500,000, but the cities are going to have to buy in. And if we don't have a plan that seems viable and fresh and new, they're not going to give you permission to spend $500,000. So the cleanest way to do it, to keep you motivated to come up with a solution, is you take it out of that redistribution amount. It comes out of the same place one way or another. You just reduce the checks a little bit that one year. it's not like we're burning through everything and we have to go into those reserves. You're going to need justification on why you want to go into the reserves and not just take it out of that excess franchise fee.
But
And keep in mind, this is off topic, but keep in mind, we have tons of things to figure out within this organization. We have the space. We've kept this space all this time. We have space to figure out. We need to cut space. We don't use half of this space. That's going to have to come up. But right now we're under Comcast rental agreement. Our rent's going to completely change. We took a stab, but we don't have a contract yet. That's got to be negotiated. And they're waiting until Comcast negotiates their portion before we negotiate with the city of White Bear. Maybe they'll give it to us for nothing. Maybe they'll give it to us for $1. Who knows? I don't know. But we got space to figure out. There are a whole bunch of things that need to happen. But the motion is you adopt what you have, you take it out of your franchise fees. That gives you time to come up with what you want to come up with and reinvent a new budget, at some point.
Jeff?
just down to the nitty-gritty, and those reserves that the commission holds are not the commission's. The commission is not. If this place folds up its tent tomorrow and every community here says we're leaving, that money is ours and it's distributed.
Right.
It's not the commission's, it's ours. So let's make sure that when we do this, we understand what we're doing properly, because we are taking both distribution and, frankly, pulling out those reserves that the cities own via their voting shares. So let's just be real sure that we understand that.
Well, the cities are not getting those reserves back unless we fold.
Well, Maplewood got a big old piece of them back, I think. Didn't Maplewood get a
they
big
sure did.
chunk? Yeah, I thought they got some money back. I seem to remember them getting some cash.
And they asked for more.
Yeah.
So,
And
anyway.
I'll add, with the redistribution payments, well, I'm no longer a sitting council member. I was for a number of years. And I can tell you that my city, anyway, budgeted for a certain amount each year. There's an expectation. So if it dips down significantly, that's a whole new conversation on what's going on over at the Cable Commission. Why did our payment go down? So I just think it's foolish to do something like that, but if that's the direction that some people feel is necessary.
So you have a motion.
The motion originally.
we had a
motion. Oh, do we?
And now you got another one.
said
So
we
you're
use the
saying that this second motion shouldn't be made?
Well, so do we have a motion then?
Well, Les made
Les made the
I
motion.
made
Somebody
Okay.
second.
Did somebody second?
And Ron repeated it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I just
God,
heard
we
Ron
didn't
say it. I didn't
No.
know that you had actually made it.
I repeated it for Les so that
Okay.
it would be
So,
clear what-
Les, you made a motion. Do we have a second?
Well, if you need a second, I'll second it. But wait, are you saying that if we pass this motion, then the cities are going to be really upset? And
Some
if we-
cities.
If we don't pass the motion, then what?
Well, then we have a real dilemma, because we need to present a budget to the member communities by the 1st of August.
One of the hang-ups when that was first presented, way back when, before most of you guys got out of high school. Anyway, the concern was, what if? What if we don't have the money? And we promised it over the years. Well, I guess we're at that what if moment.
Which is, I think, why some of us are saying opportunity for change.
Yes, absolutely. I don't like change. I'm really old.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Madam Chair,
yep.
just wanted to make sure I have it correct. Les moved, Karen second, to adopt 2022 budget, adding back in the executive director position, finance from, and I wasn't sure whether it's either excess franchise fees or
Fine.
Redistribution.
Excess, in other words, from franchise fees, current franchise fees. Okay.
And that would be for, not this year, but next
2022.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we can change that. We still have months before.
No, it'll have to go through the normal approval process with the member communities. And then if you decide to make a change to that budget, which, you know, it can change, then you'll have to pass an amended budget, and you'll have to then submit that, just like we did the 2021 amended budget. It'll have to go through approval of the city and then move it forward.
Well, and we can see what they think. I mean, is it that awful?
For some cities, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, correct?
Yep.
Les and, okay. Are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
Oh, and why don't we take a roll call vote?
Okay. Randy LaFoy?
No.
Bob Nuffert?
No.
Jeff Huber?
No.
Katrina Beckstrom?
No.
Karen Gotchberg?
I don't know. Can I abstain? I don't know really,
See,
because I'm still forgetting what happens if we don't pass this.
Truthfully, we'll probably need legal consultation on how that gets handled.
Madam Chair, this is
Yes.
not time for debates.
No.
Yep,
it
nope,
isn't.
correct, yep.
Roll call
So,
vote.
so, what was your vote, Karen?
Oh, we can't discuss it? Okay. I'm gonna abstain.
Okay.
I'm not sure. about
Lori
anything
Polkerbeck?
anymore.
No.
Les Dom?
yes.
Ron Den?
No.
Vicky Keating?
I have to abstain.
Well, the motion failed.
Ron?
So, Madam Chair, Executive Director, what, with no clear consensus on the proposed budget, what are our options?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I have an to suggest. I think, you know, we've never run into this before where you don't have a budget that you agree to as a commission. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the protocol would be. I mean, it certainly could notify the communities that you're still trying to resolve it, and
I think that's what we do.
that your intent is that.
That's fine, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's just do that.
Smart idea.
Yep. But this is not going to change this evening, so.
It isn't, and frankly, it is possible. The cities are the signers of the contract of the joint powers agreement. If they wish to modify that August 1st, it's within their power to modify that August 1st. As you said, that's occurred before. So if additional discussions, meetings are required, certainly the cities can allow that time.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's not going to happen tonight.
Nope.
So we don't have a budget.
Well, you won't be able to send it to the cities by August 1st. So I think it's worth notifying them that we weren't able to come to a conclusion, but that you know you're still trying to work through.
And that's okay with the cities? And
Well, we'll find out. I mean,
We
I
will.
Yes, we will find out. That is true. Yep. Okay. Well, shall we move on then to the next item, which is really not going to be any different than the last discussion in that it's more about personnel. So,
The two topics got
yeah.
merged together.
Yep, they really did. This is for the remainder of 2021. The other was for 2022. So,
Which there, I was just going to talk about what I already talked
Yep.
about,
Yep.
which is the expenses related to the elimination of the position. So keep that in mind as you're re-envisioning your budget going forward. And think about that.
Okay.
So what is this vote going to do?
Oh,
What's
well,
the motion?
we're actually not going to be voting. in
Yeah,
that
there's nothing to talk
Yeah.
about because you didn't vote to eliminate the executive director
Right.
position, and you're carrying forth, well,
Yeah.
we don't have a budget.
So then the next discussion is unnecessary. So the good
What
news
was the
is we
next
get to
dis-
move
what
on.
was it going
It
to
was
be?
pertaining to the remainder of 2021, but that was a follow-up for 2022. Without one, you don't do the other. So good news is we can move on.
I
And
wish we had done 2021 first.
well,
That
but
wouldn't
they're
change anything.
related though. It's regarding the elimination of a position. So they're related.
Either way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah. Yep. But okay, so at this point, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh,
No, that was your motion. I'll second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion
Aye.
carries. Thank you and good night.